All right, here we go. Yo, what up, though, man? I got Harold Bright in the building, man. How you doing?
I'm good.
Hey.
Blessed and highly favored.
There we go, man. I tell you what, man, I'm excited to sit down, man, to capture this journey. You'll be my first professional bodybuilder that I ever had on my platform, man. So I'm excited to tap into that journey because I ain't gonna lie, Instagram has put a lot of pressure on people, especially men now, to get in shape and to look good. Before, women always had the pressure to look good, but then we start to see people like you. You know what I'm saying?
That dad bod, that came and went real quick. Real quick.
But so I do want to kind of the accolades or a little bit about what you do, because when we think of bodybuilding, most people not familiar with the many types of bodybuilding there is. Can you kind of break down the bodybuilding categories and what exactly it is you do?
Well, in terms of just general bodybuilding, there is, starting from the bottom, there's bikini, then there's figure, then there's fitness, then there's women's physique, and then there's female bodybuilding. Then on the men's side, there's men's classic physique, and then there's my category, there's men's physique, then there's my category, which is men's classic physique, and then there's the top tier, the granddaddy of them all, bodybuilding.
Gotcha. Now, why classic physique and not bodybuilding? What made you chose classical bodybuilding than the other two you just named?
Well, on the one hand, I like to pose. I'm not necessarily the best at it, but you know what they say, practice makes perfect, permanent, whatever you want to call it. And in bodybuilding in general, there's not a lot of unique posing. And from a health aspect of it, I used to do bodybuilding, but I was hovering somewhere around 300 pounds. And at 50 years old now, I can't continue to do that.
Gotcha.
So I had to bring it down. So it serves two purposes for me to do classic physique. Number one, I get to focus on posing. And number two, just for health reasons, a 50-year-old man at 230 pounds is a lot healthier than a 50-year-old man at 300 pounds.
No, absolutely.
Who cares if it's muscle or not? It's still, that heart gonna have to do some work.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I want to capture the journey since this is our first time sitting down. Louisiana native, right?
My family is from Louisiana,
okay.
But I was born and raised here.
Here, okay.
In Texas.
So coming here, born and raised here in Texas, man, like what was that upbringing like and what part of Texas was you raised in?
I was raised in the D. I was raised in Dallas, Texas. And my mother just decided, excuse me. My mother just decided that I was born in Oak Cliff.
Okay.
And my mother decided that, the cliff was just a little too rough back then in the 70s. And, so she decided that we had family in Grand Prairie, Texas. And so we moved to Grand Prairie, Texas, just to get back on our feet. And then after we got back on our feet, my mother decided she wanted us to have better schooling. Not to say that Grand Prairie doesn't have good schools, but at that particular time, she just thought Arlington had better schools.
Gotcha.
And so we moved from Grand Prairie to Arlington, and that's where most of my upbringing came from, is Arlington, Texas.
Okay. So growing up in Arlington, Texas, with your family dynamic, what was that like? Was it both your mom, your dad? How many siblings? What was that family dynamic like?
It's older sister, younger brother, and myself, and my stepfather, and my mother.
Okay. So bodybuilding is normally not a lot of, especially black kids, first sport to get into.
True.
And especially in Texas, I mean, we know a lot of bodybuilders are here, but football, basketball, but we know football is God in Texas. Did you get into sports growing up, and what sports were you into?
I got into sports, but funny story. I've seen, I wanted to be Earl Campbell. I wanted to be Carl Lewis. I wanted to be all these athletes. But before I wanted to be any one of them, I wanted to be a bodybuilder, believe it
Gotcha.
or not. So I knew at a very young age what I wanted to do.
Got you. Now, in the high schools, I know growing up in Detroit, unfortunately, wrestling and strength training, like powerlifting, weren't an option for me.
Mm-hmm.
Were you able to get into bodybuilding or get into like powerlifting in high school here?
Actually, I was. And that's what made me gravitate towards bodybuilding and away from sports, because I realized, every kid wants attention.
Yeah.
And I realized sports, I was gifted. But at the same time, I didn't get as much attention from sports as I did from being in the gym, working out, and watching other people's reactions to me working out.
Got you.
Watching my muscles.
Got you.
And that's how it started.
Now, as it progressed, teenage years, things of that nature, I know you shared a story with me, man, like at one point in time you did a bid in prison.
Mm-hmm.
How did you, because it sounded like you had a good family dynamic, a good nucleus. How did you find yourself up in prison, and what did you go to prison for?
Wow. Okay. That is a story and a half right there. Honestly, I went to prison for possession with the intent to deliver. And this was back when I was 25 years old. And believe it or not, I've never really told this story, but believe it or not, how I ended up in that situation is I had just gotten out of the military, and I can't believe I'm telling this story, but I was in a relationship where I was the one who was being abused. And I was in a relationship with a woman who, she was with a man before me who probably, whooped her butt for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And when I met her, she told me that right off. And of course, me trying to be Mr. Suave, Mr. Debonair, Mr. Knight in shining armor, I tried to let her know that, no man should treat a woman like that, and so on and so forth. And so every time we would get into a situation or an argument or what have you, she would haul off and hit me. And it was almost as if she was doing it just to see my reaction. And I would never react. And I got to a point where, this was also during the time when the O.J. Simpson trial was going on. So if I had even thought about, retaliation or putting my hands on her, they would have put me under the jail. And so my only solution at that particular time was to call my baby brother, who at that time, unfortunately, was a drug dealer. And I let him know, hey, I can't take this no more. At that time, I had just gotten out of the military. I was down in San Antonio, Texas, and he was still up in Dallas. This was my last duty station. And he basically said, I got you. I'm coming to get you. So I let her go to sleep, and I went in the laundry room and I started washing all my clothes. And as soon as I felt like she was asleep, I called him and I told him, come get me. And I put all my clothes, y'all know how it is.
Yeah.
You put all the clothes in your trash bags, and I was out and heading back up to the DFW area. No job, no nothing. And he basically let me know, hey man, if you need any work, I got work. I didn't know anything about it. I just knew that I needed money, and I needed money fast. So he asked me, did I want to do it? I didn't want to do it, but I wanted the money. And 1,500 turned into 2,000, 2,000 turned into 5,000. And before I knew it, people say that the only real addiction is the drugs. That's not true. There is also a money addiction, and I got addicted. Even though I knew it was wrong, I got addicted to the money.
Gotcha.
Became fast and furious.
And so when you were selling, when you was moving, like what exactly were you selling?
Now we ain't gonna sit here. We're gonna sit here and talk about that. We just gonna talk about the fact that I did not know that aligning myself with my little brother.
Gotcha.
He was under investigation, and I'll let you decide how much he was moving for them to be investigating him, and me, like an idiot, I just get caught up in that investigation.
Gotcha. So you end up getting arrested. Like, how did that go down, and how much time did you end up being sentenced? How did that work?
They sentenced me to 9 years in prison.
Ooh. Man.
Yeah.
So out of the 9 years, did you have to serve the whole 9, or how much time out of the 9?
No, believe it or not, it's a funny thing. You know, I don't like to talk about it too much because I don't want people to feel like I got over on the system. But there's a thing called a parole attorney. And I paid for a parole attorney after I was imprisoned. And what a parole attorney does is they go before the parole board and basically argue your case for you. And, you know, I had a clean record, had never been in trouble with the law, regardless of how much that they caught me with. You know, I was still eligible to make my first parole, and a lot of guys don't. I don't know if it's the way the system is set. You know, they want you to sit there for a while and think about it. But I had an attorney on my side. And sure enough, on that 9-year sentence, I probably did 10 months in prison, and I did all the rest of it on parole because I had a good parole attorney that made sure that when I came up for my first parole, I was out of there.
Gotcha.
Because I just decided that, you know what, that's not for me. Prison is just not for me.
Got you. Was going in, and before we move on from this, just that first month or day in prison, like, was it a shocker? What was it like for you?
Well, I've always been a big guy. And one of the things that I thought about when I first went in was, oh man, I got all these guys, they're gonna want to test me and so on and so forth. And that's not true. You stay to yourself, you mind your own business, you do your time, you don't let your time do you.
Gotcha.
Go ahead and let him come on in.
No, he cool, yeah. Okay. So you get out, so I assume doing 10 months out of a 9-year bid, the remainder of the time you're on parole for the rest of the time.
I'm on parole. They watching every little thing I do.
Gotcha.
I can't sneeze wrong.
But you get to the very end of doing this parole and something happens and it kind of mess it up, right?
Oh no, we skipped over an entire section, my brother. No. We skipped over the entire section of the fact that when I first got convicted, I guess you could say, of possession with the intent, they initially gave me 180 days of what they call shock probation and 10 years of probation.
Got you.
And I had a really good friend by the name of Natasha Swan that made for sure that I got in at lifetime. And I was one of the top trainers in the area for a long time. And at that time, I started to excel in bodybuilding as well.
Got you. Okay.
And anybody that keeps it real, I mean, you're taking anabolic steroids when you're bodybuilding. And a good friend of mine at that particular time, we were in the gym late one night at Lifetime. His name is Chris Jalali. May he rest in peace. We were talking about a cycle or something like that. And you had to know this guy to see the picture that I'm trying to paint. Evidently, there was somebody listening to our conversation, And me being as big as I am and him being as small as he is, he looked like a little kid. But Chris Jalali at that time was probably like 25, 28 years old. And we were talking about a cycle. Well, the person that overheard the conversation thought that he was a kid and thought, I'm a grown man talking about steroids to a kid.
Oh,
yeah.
Shit.
And so this whole time, as I said before, I'm on parole. And this lady turned me in to the police department saying that I was trying to sell steroids to kids.
Wow.
Yeah. And so they had me under investigation, so on and so forth. One night I was coming home late from the gym and I changed lanes without signaling, and they pulled me over. And they saw that I was on parole and so on and so forth. And so they asked me, could they search the car? And every bodybuilder at one point in time has done it. You know, you have something in your bag, and the amount that I had in my bag was a misdemeanor amount. It was for my own personal consumption.
Right.
But the issue was that I was already on
Parole.
10 years of probation.
Oh, got you, yeah.
I was already on 10 years of probation. And so when they got it out of my gym bag, like I said, it was a misdemeanor amount. Any other time, it would have been a slap on the wrist, but it violated my probation. And when I went to court, this was also during the Olympics, and they were trying to make a big deal about steroids and so on and so forth. And when I went before the judge, I had done, at that particular time, 8 years and 6 months of that probation. I was almost done. And I guess that judge decided she wanted to make an example out of me and sentenced me to 9 years in prison.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
So here it is. Now you fast forward, and we now you're getting back into competitive mode. You out of prison. You're doing your thing. How long did it take you to start getting that competitive edge to actually go into competitive bodybuilding, or was it something else you tried to pursue once you got out prior to that?
Going back to the getting out of prison, what lit my fire was the fact that getting out of prison. I'm gonna try and keep this as politically correct as possible. In the prison system, it's not made for rehabilitation.
Gotcha.
And so the recidivism rate is very, very, very high because there's nothing really out there that once you get out, that's going to keep you from going back. There's no real programs out there that say, okay, we're gonna teach you this, we're gonna teach you that. They say there are, but there aren't. And so what lit my fire was the fact that I made parole. I was on my way out, and a person, a non-Black person, looked me in my eye and told me, you'll be back. Y'all always come back. Y'all meaning African Americans. And that lit my fire, and I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna do anything and everything in my power to prove this guy wrong. That's how I ended up back in bodybuilding, back personal training, trying to be the best person that I could be doing something that I love doing, because I wanted to prove that person wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So now here it is, you start you competing. At what age did you start professionally competing at bodybuilding?
I was a late bloomer. I didn't actually start competing until I was, 35, 36 years old. All these guys, they start somewhere around 18, 20, 22. I didn't start till I was like 35, 36.
Gotcha. So you step in that arena, man. What was it like that first time, like stepping on the stage? Where did you place? What was it like that first time?
Wow. To tell you about that, I have to go back first.
Okay.
To a young lady. Her name is Sheila Brown. And I was a personal training director at a club called Victory Gym in DeSoto. It's no longer there, but I was a personal training director. And I was in there working out one day, and she took a look at me and she said, have you ever thought about bodybuilding? And mind you, I'm from the hood. So the last thing on my mind, I loved the look of a bodybuilder, but the last thing on my mind, being from the hood, was standing on the stage in my drawers. That's what I thought about. So when she approached me, that was the first thing that popped into my head is you really think I'm gonna step on stage in my drawers and just be out there for the whole world? And she said, here's my card. And she gave me the card of a contest promoter by the name of Prince Harrison. And she said, here's his card. Just give him some of your time and then decide whether or not you want to do bodybuilding. So I called this guy up, went over to his house, and he said it's a choice. You know, everybody has a choice. He started talking to me about the pros and cons, and I'm still competitive. And so he gave me another opportunity to be competitive. That's all he had to do. And I just decided, okay, that's for me. You know, I'm gonna go ahead and try it. And a lot of guys going into bodybuilding, I don't wanna say they rely on the drugs, but they don't have the same work ethic now as we had when I first started.
Gotcha.
Because I almost use no drugs. I can't say I didn't use any, but almost none. And I won my first 3 shows back to back to back. Every time I step on stage, I got to win.
Gotcha.
And I was hooked. That's what got me started, is the fact that, I mean, you step on stage, you do well, and you start thinking, I can't lose. So why quit? Why would I walk away from something like that?
Absolutely. Now, when people look at bodybuilding, of course, Mr. Olympia is one of the big ones. Mm-hmm. Of course, Arnold Classic is another big one. Any aspirations, were you able to get into any of those shows, or what's like the aspiration when it comes to those type of competitions?
Well, honestly and truthfully, life happens. And so after I won like a few shows, bills have to get paid.
Yeah.
And so bodybuilding is not paying these bills. You know, I can't flex and get my light bill paid, overhead ab shot, you know, and get the car note paid. That ain't happening. So I had to take a break from bodybuilding and started having kids and so on and so forth. And I took some time off to focus on just one of the things that a lot of up-and-coming bodybuilders don't take the time to do. Have something to fall back on.
Gotcha.
Before you get serious. I got into this and I realized I was good at it, but it's an expensive sport. So once I realized how much it took to get on stage, I had to take a step back, because when you start having kids, you got to choose between protein powder or Similac, you know?
Yeah.
So that Similac, you know, that took precedence over that protein powder. So I had to take a back seat and build a foundation to where if I really wanted to compete, other things wouldn't suffer.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying?
So once you took that step back, and here it is, I mean, you kind of fast forward, you take that break, but now it's like you're 50 years old, and you out here crushing young guys, man. Like, how does that feel getting on the stage where you got kids as young as your son, 15, 20 plus years younger, and you just holding your nuts on them? Like, how that feel?
Well, I try and tell a lot of guys, some older than me, some younger than me, I try and explain to them that it's the will.
Gotcha.
It has nothing to do with genetics. It has nothing to do with having the right friends, knowing the right people. It just, you have to have a will to win.
Gotcha.
And so when I first took some time off and then jumped back in when I thought my financial situation was good, my body wasn't, because I had took some time off. So I jump on that stage thinking that, I'm all that. And I placed in that next show, I think I placed 6th. And man, that was like a dagger in my heart. Like, wow, I thought I was all that. I'm winning these shows, first and second, this, that, and the other, I'm good. And then that 6th place was a reality check for me. And I just decided that God willing, give me the will to never have to face another situation like that again. Give me the will that no matter how many times they knock me down, give me the will to get back up.
So.
And so then after that, it just became a situation of learning to overcome any type of adversity at any show.
Got you. Now, when you talk about, I know we talk about, you mentioned steroids earlier a little bit. Steroids have such a negative tone behind it, a negative. People put a negative stigma on steroids. Me personally, being an athlete, being a former athlete or whatever, I feel like it shouldn't be illegal. I feel like a person, when they're pursuing professional, should be able to put whatever in their body to compete at the highest level. I feel like a baseball player shouldn't be fined or frowned upon if he's using steroids to strengthen up his ligaments so he could continue to pitch a 100-mile fastball 180 games a season. How do you feel about those who got like a negative stigma or outlook on steroids?
How do I feel about those who have a negative stigma about steroids?
Or just your in general steroids? Should it be illegal and should it be considered a felony to have it?
Honestly and truthfully, I put steroids in the same category, and this may offend some people. I put steroids in the same category as lip injections. I put steroids in the same category as breast enhancements, Brazilian butt lifts, and all that kind of stuff. I put steroids in the same category. It's something that enhances the human body. Okay, so if butt injections, lip injections, Botox, we talking about a poisonous chemical being injected into your face, to keep you from frowning.
Yeah.
If you can inject Botox, you can inject people's lips, if you can give Brazilian butt lifts, if you can give calf implants, if you can give chest implants and all that kind of stuff to make people, quote unquote, enhanced, then what's the difference? Why can't you do that with anabolic steroids? I personally don't see a difference.
Gotcha. Do you feel like anabolic steroids is cheating though in professional sports?
The only way I would see it as cheating is if everyone wasn't allowed to do it.
Gotcha.
So it's cheating now because you have some that will choose to do it and there are others who choose not to. So it's an unfair advantage. But if the playing field was leveled and everybody was allowed to do it, as far as I'm concerned, quit your crying. If you know for a fact that he's doing it because it's legal and this guy is housing you as far as, hitting 80 home runs in a season, then you have the same option he does and you could take those same anabolic steroids. Because here's the thing about anabolic steroids. Not every person is going to get the same results. Just because you are a sprinter and you take anabolic steroids, that's not going to guarantee you a sub 10-second performance.
Right.
We have bodybuilders that take steroids all the time, and look at how many different. Some guys are big, some guys, some guys are tall, some guys are short. Everybody is built differently. Not everybody is good. If that were the case, then I could take steroids and I could be the next Mr. Olympia. That's not true. You still have to put the work in.
Now, when it comes to steroids, I know you said like just the sport of bodybuilding is expensive. If somebody was like trying to do like steroids, like how much could a person end up spending a year approximately on steroids?
That's a tough one because, as I said before, it's gotten to the point where I can't put a number on it because
Gotcha.
it's gotten to the point where the younger generation, they use more.
Gotcha.
The older generation like myself, we use tons less. We believe in hard work. A lot of those guys depend on the actual chemicals to do the work.
Gotcha. Now, we also know it's another drug that a lot of people like to use, and that's HGH. What's your take on HGH, and which one would you rather go with over, one or the other? Would it be steroids? Would it be HGH, or can you compound both?
Well, that's just it. A lot of bodybuilders use them both.
Okay.
And some will try and say like, well, anabolic steroids isn't oil-based steroids and so on and so forth. And some will say human growth hormone is water-based and so on and so forth. So it's like, I can't honestly speak on that. I can say just pick your poison.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I can't choose one or the other. I just say pick your poison.
Now, I was watching a documentary with Arnold like a month ago, right before you and I start
Right.
training me, right?
Okay.
And Arnold was talking about how the reason why classic bodybuilding came back. He was like, you seeing guys like Ronnie Coleman shattering records, just huge. I mean, dude said, 330 pounds with less than 1% body fat. Like, it was crazy. But Arnold was saying, like, people were so focused on looking big, but classic, when he was doing bodybuilding, you wanted to look big and symmetrical. Like, you wanted to be big and look good, while dudes just start looking lumpy and start looking freakish. It wasn't a body goal look.
Yeah.
And that these guys, you used to want to see a guy with a flat abs, but now you're seeing dudes with it look like pot bellies. It got abs on top of it, but it look like beer bellies. Like, what's your take on the creation of the classical bodybuilding, and has the traditional or full bodybuilding gone too far?
Full, just like bodybuilding in general, has to probably reel it back a little bit because it comes in waves. Every decade or so, you're gonna always have that one individual that's just bigger than everybody else. And because you have that one individual that's bigger than everybody else, the second he wins, now that becomes the prototype of what everybody needs to, or not needs to, everybody wants to look like. They think in order to be successful, you have to be as big as that particular person, which is not true. But unfortunately, that's the way it is in bodybuilding.
Gotcha.
I personally have gone to classic physique because I like the fact that every guy, from the guy that's 5 feet tall to the guy that's 6'9", they've leveled the playing field where they basically say, if you're going to be that tall, you have to weigh this much. If you're going to be that short, you have to weigh this much. So pound for pound, everybody has to be quote unquote symmetrical.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, let's go into the training. Like, we know when a boxer trains for a match, I mean, he has his coach, in the ring that does his thing. He got his cutter guy to make sure the eyes is good. He has together a team. When it comes to bodybuilding, what does a team look like when you're preparing for an event, and what is that training process like?
When it comes to bodybuilding, there are 3 very important people. And unfortunately, you have a lot of coaches, and a lot of coaches are not going to want to hear me say this. But unfortunately, you have there's enough money out there in bodybuilding for everybody.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you have a lot of greed. And it's not just in bodybuilding. That's in any sport, period. But unfortunately, the greed comes from, you have to have a good posing coach, someone teaching you how to pose. You have to have a really good nutritionist. And you have to have a really good coach in terms of working out, a strength coach, somebody that's going to put you in the gym and put you through your paces. Here's the problem with that. If you have a good strength coach, he may not be 100% on the nutrition.
Got you.
So you lose a little. If you have a good posing coach, they may not be the best person in terms of working out, so on and so forth. And as far as I'm concerned, all three of those need to be split.
Got you.
I have a person that works with me in terms of my posing. I myself train myself in terms of my strength and conditioning. And then I also have a nutrition coach separate from everything else. So I have a nutrition coach, I have a posing coach. My nutrition coach is Andrew Vu. My posing coach is Sheila Brown.
Gotcha.
And then as far as my strength and conditioning, I do it myself.
Got you.
I don't believe in one person being top notch in everything. You can't be like a Terence Ruffin is one of the best posers I've ever seen. You can't be a Terence Ruffin in terms of a posing coach and then also have the nutritional knowledge, of an Andrew Vu, and also have the strength and conditioning of myself.
Got you.
It's you're gonna break it down into many different sections. You ever heard the term jack of all trades, but master of nothing?
Yep.
Okay. So what they're basically saying is you're good at a lot of different things, but you're not great. Find something you're great at and stay great at that one thing. Let one person be great at posing. Let one person be great at nutrition. Let one person be great at strength and conditioning. That's the way I see it. That's just my personal opinion.
Got you. Now, I know when I reached out to you, I said, hey, man, I want to get in competition. I miss competition. And I remember the greatest thing you asked me. He said, man, are you really wanting to compete or you want to be whole ready?
Yeah.
Which one? And I was like, wait, what? I mean, if you competing, you getting whole ready. So I always I wanted you to break that down for me. You did. But for those who are looking, who thinking they want to competing versus those who just really want to get in good shape.
Right.
What is the difference between a competition and just getting in really good shape?
I can make it real simple in terms of body fat percentages. A lot of people are not gonna. A lot of people are not gonna like the way my terminology, but at the same time, different strokes for different folks.
Right.
And the term "whole ready," we use that term meaning, God forgive me for saying this, but you want a body that the hoes want to sleep with. Now, I'm not saying that every woman that wants to sleep with a bodybuilder is a hoe. It is just a term. No. We want to get hoe ready. Guys that are hoe ready, those are the guys that have what they call the beach bodies.
Gotcha.
They're probably, I want to say somewhere between 10, maybe 15% body fat.
Gotcha.
They're carrying quite a bit of muscle, but they don't have to diet as hard.
Got you.
Okay. They look good, on the beach, but they wouldn't last 2 seconds on an actual competition stage.
Got you.
When we talk about competition ready, okay, now we're talking about somebody that's really having to focus on the nutrition aspects of it. And we're talking about getting down somewhere between 7, 6, 5%, maybe even at extreme cases, 4% body fat. Now that's extreme. But what they have to understand is we're only getting to this extreme level for one day.
Got you.
And then we go back to, whatever. That's almost like a boxer training to make weight. He makes weight for what? To step on that scale for that one day. And then he carbs up.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we do the exact same thing. We get down to a certain percentage, a certain weight for one day. And then as soon as we make weight, everybody's carbing up, getting ready for competition.
Got you.
Yeah.
Because I seen that, man. It was just like, man, going through these workouts, man, I tell you, been doing it for about a month now. I'm starting to see the changes.
Yeah.
It ain't no joke, though.
No.
I tell it like people look for bodybuilding and strength and conditioning coaches, and it's people that are unengaged or people they looking for people that's going to be nice. but I like the way that you operate because you upfront.
Yeah.
You're not gonna
Well,
bullshit.
I can still be nice. It's just depending on whose version of nice I am.
Exactly.
Everybody else, like I said, different strokes for different folks. I might say something that somebody doesn't necessarily agree with on this side, but the other person who has thicker skin, they have no problem with what I said. So, if you don't have, I read a book once called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And what I've learned through that book is that you can't talk to everybody the exact same way. So I will admit, I'm gruff. I'm rough on the exterior. I consider myself a DMX type, I'm in your face. But at the same time, I've also had people who you could tell they're really soft-spoken, and you could tell that, they are probably afraid of their own shadow. And so I've learned over the years to tone it down. But when people want to come to me as far as getting on stage, there is no such thing for me as toning it down, because it's competition. The same way a coach yells at you for basketball, the same way a coach yells at you for golf, the same way a coach yells at you for football or even jiu-jitsu, karate, or MMA. I'm gonna be yelling at your ass for bodybuilding.
Yeah.
I can't tone that down.
Now, before we get out of here, I gotta get this from you. Your Mount Rushmore of bodybuilders. Who are your top 3 or 4 bodybuilders of all time?
Well, see, that's a loaded question, because now that I've actually danced in both arenas, bodybuilding and classic physique, I have more respect now for classic physique.
Gotcha.
Now, that's not discounting the bodybuilders and the great work that I've seen out of bodybuilding. That's saying that I've learned to better appreciate what goes on in classic physique. But in terms of, now, to be fair, I'm gonna say my top 4 in terms of bodybuilding. I'm gonna have to say Ronnie, of course.
For sure.
But in terms of being an ambassador and a gentleman, I'm gonna have to say Lee Haney. So that's Ronnie Coleman, Lee Haney. And in terms of monetizing bodybuilding, putting bodybuilding on the map financially, I gotta say Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Okay.
I mean, man, what he's done for bodybuilding in terms of showing these guys that you can make a decent career if you know how to monetize.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Ronnie Coleman, that's Lee Haney, that's Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the last one, wow, there's so many guys that embody this. I look for bodybuilders who are ambassadors.
Gotcha.
That they know how to talk the talk, they know how to walk the walk. And the one person that I can honestly say who knows how to talk the talk, walk the walk, but at the same time, he's a monster in the gym, but he's an intellectual. Yeah, he has a tendency to be a little bit long-winded sometimes, but he embodies everything. He understood how to monetize bodybuilding. He's a beast. He's also a really good ambassador, and that would be Kai Green.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was building up. I thought it was going to be C.T. Fletcher.
Nah.
C.T. is definitely motivational, though, for sure.
Yeah, he's motivational, but we talking about,
That's
some guys that were doing the damn thing. Now, I cannot leave these guys out, because now I'm part of that brotherhood.
Yeah, for sure.
And in terms of classic bodybuilding, I would have to say Chris Bumstead.
Okay.
Because the man gets hit from all sides in terms of, you always want to see somebody go down. You never want to see him come up. And people take shots at this man constantly, and he keeps coming back.
Yep.
Another one is, I would have to say, Terence Ruffin,
Okay.
because Terence Ruffin has brought back the art of posing to a point where watching this man pose makes me want to go take ballet lessons just so I can get on that level.
Got you.
It's that artistic. I would have to say Breon Amesley. You know, he's come by my gym and we've chopped it up a few times. And until you actually talk to a lot of professional bodybuilders, you can go by what you see in the articles, and you know a lot of that has been redacted.
Yeah.
You can go by what you see in the articles, or you can sit down and actually talk to the person and get to know them as a person. So that would probably be my top three, and the fourth one, of course, is me.
There you go.
Because I'm gonna keep it real. At 50 years old, I plan on showing these young cats that with the power of will, I will not only be up there on that stage, but I will be neck and neck with the best.
Facts. Hey, I'm telling you what, you doing it. It's definitely an inspiration. I hope, man, that you really, excuse me, I hope that you really go ahead, man, and jump into the podcast world. I feel like the fitness world needs you because you may not have all the time to work everybody out. And what people don't realize is you're selective with who you work out with as well. You're not going to, I'd be like, hey, man, this person say they want to work out with you. Like, hey.
And I apologize to that. Let's say this right now. You have brought it to my attention that some people wanted to work with me, but you are right. I am select in terms of a person's mindset. If they don't come at me, or if you've talked to me about certain people and I just don't get the right vibe, then I really don't want to take the time to bring that person under my wing. And it's nothing personal against them. You know, like I said, once again, one of my favorite sayings is different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm sure they're great people. They just not my cup of tea. Nothing personal.
And I think that's why the podcast will be great, because certain gyms they may not need to be in here physically with you. They can just get from you by listening to certain topics, quick, easy fixes, just the journey, the inspiration. I tell you what, man, I'm glad I could be a part of this journey. I'm glad that my fat self was accepted. Hey, man, I'm looking forward to the journey that we on.
Yeah.
Hey, man, and hopefully we can continue to push forward.
Most definitely.
Hey, man, I'm proud to be part of the Steel Jungle.
Appreciate it.
Hey, man, until we meet again.
Until we meet again, which is that next training session.
In the morning, 5 a.m.
In the morning, 5 a.m.
Yes, sir.
Up when the rooster crow.
Peace out.
All right.